What's up guys, my name is Andy. I want to go over the top 5 things that you should do to your classic Mustang. Now these list of modifications are assuming that you're not doing a full restoration concourse build where you're going to put stock parts back on the car and make it back to stock. This is assuming that you're going to be making some changes to your car, and this is also assuming that you don't have other problems with the car, like there's no transmission or there's no no seats inside there. Obviously you would take care of that stuff, but if you get a running driving Mustang, what should you do? This is the first thing I think you should do. The brake master cylinder on these cars is the first item that I would replace if I were you. And the reason why is this setup here is what I have now is a dual bowl, and that's what you want to upgrade to. But what the car came with is a single bowl. And what that means is the brake system is attached to each other. They're all on one system. So if the brake line were to fail or go out, or something were to happen to one set of brakes, all of the brakes wouldn't work, and you would be forced to rely on the parking brake, which is not something that you want to do. So what would you upgrade it to? There's lots of different aftermarket options, but what I've got here is a Wilwood dual bowl setup, and I also have the brake proportioning valve on the side you can see here. And what this does, this separates the front and the rear braking system. So if something were to happen in the front, I still have the rear, vice versa. This is something that it doesn't matter if you get this Wilwood setup or just a OEM type of brake master cylinder, it'll do the same thing. I wanted an aftermarket upgrade, but so that's why I have this one. But a regular stock type dual bowl will be fine for your car. This is something that is the first thing I recommend anybody doing, because this is a safety feature, and what you want to be able to do is stop your car. And speaking of stopping the car, another item on my list are disc brake upgrades for at least the front. The rear, not as critical, but definitely on the front. Again, going back to that whole thing, being able to stop the car. If you want to go as fast as you want or hit the curves or whatever you want to do in this car, even just going to the grocery store, you want to be able to stop the car. So adding disc brakes and being able to stop the car is why this is another item on my list of must-haves. What I have on here is a set of Wilwood 4-piston calipers. You don't need to go this fancy. There are OEM type options you can put on here. Again, I was trying to go for a little bit more performance, something that I could push the brakes a little harder and get a little more out of this car. So that's why I went with Wilwood. I've been very happy with these. In fact, this is the second set of Wilwood I had on my last Mustang. I had the same brakes on that car because I like them so much. Now I have them on this car. Next item on my list is the Shelby Drop, or the Shelby Mod, or the Arning Drop. It's all the same thing. And what it does is it lowers the mount point of the upper control arm. Well, what does that do? It's going to improve several items. One of them being your center of gravity is going to be lower in the car, particularly if handling of the car is something that's on your list of things to focus on. That will help. It will also reduce the body roll of your car. As you carve through the corners, you're going to feel less of the car shifting back and forth as you're carving through all of the hairpin turns that you're going to be going on. Another item that it's going to take care of and help is the camber curve. And this is something that's hard to illustrate here in the car, but as your tires go up and down over bumps and stuff like that, the position of the tire, how it's vertical, is going to stay more vertical as you go through the curves and go through the turns. And that is something that with the stock mount position, it doesn't do that. It's going to be exaggerated, but the tire could be leaning more right or left, depending on if you're turning right or left. And with that lower mount point, it's going to change how it keeps that tire straighter for the curves. That's what we want. And this is something that can be done with, there's lots of different templates. You can print out a template, you can buy templates online. That all it does is it just allows you to bolt the template to the existing mount holes of your upper control arm, and it gives you a place to drill some pilot holes for the new mount point, which is on the 64 to 66. It's down an inch and back an eighth is the term. But on the 67 to 70, it's just down an inch. It's because of how the upper control arm is mounted to the car on the different bodies. You don't have to go back an inch on the later models. But anyways, you take that template and you can put it in place, drill the holes, mount the new upper control arm in the new holes, and you're good to go. You don't have to change anything with your steering. You should get an alignment. I would recommend that, but you don't have to do anything with your brakes. You don't have to do anything with anything on the car, just new bolt holes. Another item on my list is intake, header, and exhaust. I know that's kind of like 3, but it's kind of the power mod or the power section of maybe upgrading your car and getting where you want to be. What I've got on here is an Edelbrock RPM air gap intake along with a Holley 750 CFM carburetor, and then I've got some JBA shorty headers. Now with the headers, I've got the JBA H pipe that goes with it, and then I've got a custom exhaust out the back. But for this setup, this is something that can give you easily 10 horse, maybe even 20 horse with not a lot of effort getting this stuff set up. You can probably pull more if you get the right parts, but this is an easy way to get extra power, get a little more response out of your motor, and then obviously you're gonna be jazzing it up and making it look nice because you're taking it away from the stock setup. So having these 3 power mod additions is an easy pick for my top 5 list. And number 5 on my list is the third member, or the differential in the back, right? What I've got, well, what your car comes with when it's stock is typically an open differential with around like 280 gears, somewhere around there. When you want to upgrade that, you want to get something a little bit lower gearing, which is a higher number. What I've got on this car is 355 to 1 gears. It's great for highway cruising and for enjoying the twisties and the curves and stuff. And then I also have what's called traction lock. It's a limited slip differential. It's like posi, right? The people are familiar with that term in the Chevy cars. So with this car, I've got that traction lock so I can have both tires spinning, gripping for traction when I want it to. I'll give you guys a bonus item. Item number 6 is going to be the panhard bar. On these cars, the axle doesn't stay centered under the car very well when you're going around corners, and you're relying on the rear leaf springs to center that axle. And by having a panhard bar or a Watts link, you could do a 4-link, but that will keep the axle right centered with the car, and so as you go around the corners, you're not going to have a snap of the axle getting lined back up with the car as you start to lift off the corner, and then you could lose control of your car. So keeping that axle in the middle of the car is where you're going to want it if you want to go around the corners. It also helps with things like rubbing. Your tires won't rub because the axle isn't floating between the left and right of the car. So that's my 6th item, my bonus item. There it is, guys. That is my top 5 items that I would do to a classic Mustang. If you got yourself a Mustang you just picked up, you don't know what to do with it, address some of those safety issues, add a little power to your car, add that rear end back there, and get that dual tires, leaving 11s down the road, right? Get those items set up, and your car's going to be dialed in. Of course, from there you can do a lot more stuff, but that's the first 5 things that I would do with a classic Mustang.